Hi, and welcome to Manti's Book Club. Today we continue reading through Profession Witch. If you are watching this on Twitch, you can find previous episodes on my YouTube channel, acidmanticore. The vote of this episode will be uploaded to my YouTube channel somewhere this week. So if this is the first stream that you see, you can safely pause it and go listen to the beginning of the book. Or you can continue listening to this one and find out what happens in the beginning later. Today we are starting with Lecture 7, Physical Education. In order to prevent possible unrest, the prudent Belorius autocrat appointed a well-fenced market square on the outskirts of the city as the site of shooting ranges, games, and merrymaking, where on Sundays they traded wholesale and retail. The center of the square was cleared of debris and garbage. A rough plank platform was erected for the judges, something like rickety step ladders for the heralds, and a luxurious dais covered in brocade and silk, on which a spare throne from the royal vault was placed, with a scarlet carpet leading to it. Both the throne and the carpet were guarded by 8 halberders and 4 swordsmen, but in case terrorist attackers put a nail or pin under the royal seat. Leaving the mare at the hitching post, I gloatingly paid the stable boy with the money given by the teacher for the amusement and entertainment of Lord of the Gala. Looked around. Everything was ready for the shooting range itself. The path was marked, the targets were placed, bows and arrows were on the table near the line, and participants were being recorded at the judge's table. Right there nearby, in the joke tent, onlookers practiced shooting with inferior bows. The prize for the winner was a rooster, and this pleasure cost 2 whole coins. I hesitated at the entrance, but did not cross the threshold. Still it's not nice to throw away other people's money. I'll wait for them. And then a wonderful thought came to my mind. Participants in the competition were entitled to 3 sighting shots, completely free of charge. I can't say that I was a very good shooter, but I rarely missed a stationary target. However, I managed to hit the bullseye at best once in 20. Well, at least I'll have fun myself and entertain others. Having received a wooden, rather garishly gilded participant badge without any problems, I went deeper into the shopping arcades. The crippled and the holy fools got underfoot, lamentably grabbing at richer-looking passers-by by their purses and skirts, riveting skillfully induced ulcers and scabs, and begging for a little change for food. In response to my refusal and counter-offer to quickly and free of charge heal the unfortunate sufferers from terrible ailments, the beggars retreated in horror and hurried to disappear into the crowd. Trade was in full swing in the rows. All of Belore and half of Almenia came to the harvest festival in the hope of selling or buying something in memory of this glorious day, hopefully with a discount. I priced the apples and couldn't believe my ears. Just yesterday, this money could have bought me not 3 pounds, not a pound, but 3. Well, it's good that they didn't take money for a look, and soon my eyes were filled with countless boots, fur coats, bust shoes, brooms, piercing and small arms, pyramids of fruits and mountains of vegetables, kitchen utensils, horses, painted toys, carpets, underwear, and mediocre paintings. I noticed Lepka's cropped head with a star shaped on the back of his head, the guild sign of the oracle, from afar, while still walking along the next row. Lepka uh, gave prophecies occasionally and was failing exams regularly, but last year it was he who predicted the appearance of a comet and a cholera epidemic in the northern provinces. The chaotic nature of Lepka's insights did not allow him to move on to the ninth year, and he sat in the seventh for 2 years until he made the teacher happy with a message about a locust invasion. Despite the measures taken, the locusts devoured the entire crop and, without thanking the agronomists, flew away to warmer climes. Lepka bought plums. Having said hello and seated and standing behind the oracle, I watched the weighing procedure. That is uh, cheating. 5 plums per pound. These are the kind of what kind of pizza they should have? Leaden ones, no less. The guy maintained a mournful silence until the merchant finished manipulating the sawed weights and stared expectantly at the buyer. Woman, the oracle howled, unexpectedly sadly and doomedly. What are you doing, woman? Why do you need these pennies? You will die tomorrow, woman. A plump, rosy-cheeked woman in the prime of her life leaned her chest so hard on the counter that the plums crunched and burst. Why would that be? She asked stupidly. Lepka sighed meaningfully, placed the required payment on the free-scale pen, and began to leisurely put the weighed plums into a deep saddlebag. Goodbye, he said sadly, preparing to leave. Hey, no, wait, sorcerer! The woman clung to Lepka's sleeve with the despair of a drowning man. Wait a minute. The oracle obeyed melancholically, continuing to look distantly into the emptiness in front of him. The merchant hastily poured a handful of large blue-black plums into the slot of his bag. Lepka did not interfere. Why would I die, huh? The woman looked ingratiatingly into Lepka's pale, spiritual face. I've never been sick since I was born. I've outlived 3 husbands, countless children. I shook plums until dark yesterday, and no matter what, I don't even ache in my lower back. But you are telling me I'll die. Fate, Lepka sighed meaningfully, helping the woman fill his bag with selected fruits. It's just what a person is destined for. Hey, don't put this one in its side is rotten. And what is destined, Lepka paused while we filled bag with 6 hands. It's opening. The oracle rolled his eyes and very convincingly imitated gnashing of teeth. I see. The planks, water, muddy cream, a tub of lies floating, underpants, white, flowers, forget-me-nots. I grunted. Lepka squeezed my hand warningly, but the woman, turned grey and confused, did not hear anything, completely absorbed in the eerie but colorful prophecy. Small fish are shying away, the oracle continued, and it falls on the sand, the pale body. The last phrase Lepka barked so loudly that the merchant jumped. Fathers of light, she babbled. These are the walkways opposite my hut, and I was just about to wash my clothes this morning. And It's my favorite underpants made of overseas silk. My father-in-law gave them to me. Oh, good people, what's going on? Almost drowned, but thanks to the kind man, he gave me this advice. I wish I could never approach those bridges again, never in my life. Thank you, Saucer. Huh? Saucer? Where are you? Where have you gone? But there has been no trace of us. Sitting down in the shadow of a dwarven tent, from where we had an excellent view of the Herald's platform, we watched with interest the turmoil that reigned in the square. If she's cheating, why can't I? Lepka philosophized, leisurely breaking apart a juicy plum, orange on the inside, along the groove. Okay, but where do you get these details? Flowers, forget-me-nots? These are magical sacraments, the oracle said morally. Help yourself. Yeah, take it. Don't be shy. I don't need that much. Look, she was generous. I feel she will take it. She will take hers on other buyers. Alright, I have to go. Need to buy something else before the shooting range, or all the tents will close. For about 10 minutes I sat alone, watching with interest as a persistent fabric merchant tries to hand a small fragile woman a piece of linen of a nasty grey-green color with black speckles. But I don't like this color. It's kind of lifeless, the woman objected. So take it for the shroud. Merchant immediately found the words. The woman crossed herself superstitiously and spat 3 times over her left shoulder. I was not able to watch the continuation of the bargain. Val, armed to the teeth and disheveled to the tips of his fingers, came across me, the shadow, and the plums. What are you sitting, chick? I spat a plum bone at him. What do you care? Well, I am wondering how long you managed to drink from the bottle before you recognize the dirt water. I burst out laughing, scattering the plums. Well, that was a gift. That's why the teacher was so furious. What, did you buy it for him? Val was genuinely horrified. I mean, not for myself. I dodged a direct answer. The troll's face turned pale, then green like a squash ovary. Val would rather fight a legion of demons than screw with the most powerful archmage of Beloria. Calm down, nothing will happen to you. I took it all upon myself. You are a true friend, Val finally exhaled. I owe you. Would you like to take a walk along the Glutton Row? I'll buy you a bagel. No, thank you. My friend will come soon. So what? I'll break his arm and he'll fall behind. The troll waved it off carefully. Leon's arm? Val turned green again. The vampire? What's wrong with that? Never seen vampires? That's the point. I did. The troll madly shook his head. It's not bad that he's a vampire, it's one cur in bed. But this vampire? How's your history doing, chick? Badly. I get in trouble all the time, I joked sadly. Do the words 15th war mean anything to you? The war between humans and vampires ended in a truce after elves, dwarves, and other non-humans, as well as most of the Coven of Mages, sided with the vampires. I rattled off by heart. Yeah, and before the truce, it was ghr, summed up Val. The vampires fought like demons. There were up to 20 people per vampire killed, but nevertheless, you humans gradually gained the upper hand, purely by numbers. And now, squeak your brains. Before this war, for every 10 vampires, there was one white-haired one. After that, 1 in 2 or 3,000. Got it? Yeah, got it. White-haired vampires died more often. Why do you think? They didn't know how to fight? I suggested. The opposite. They knew how to fight, and they fought in the front rows. White-haired are not only telepaths and judges, they are also natural-born warriors created for battle. Moreover, mortal battles mortal battles unequal because they are much superior to ordinary vampires in strength, dexterity, and vitality. They can fight for some time with a stomach ripped open, with a pierced heart, losing 9/10 of their blood. They fight sparing neither themselves nor others, and therefore are usually taken out in the battlefield from the battlefield in pieces. And if Leon left the Geva, the conclusion is obvious. It's a matter of national importance. That is, someone will get punched in the face. I didn't believe the troll. That's nonsense. He came to the shooting range. Ah, moron, Val spat at his feet in anger. And I really wanted to participate. What's stopping you now? Standing in the way of the Lord? No thank you. Here with them, with a price. Now when the trolls laugh for money, and especially free money, I was seriously worried. He's not going to rig the results, is he? No, that's unlikely. The troll shrugged his shoulders with disgust. Like, you can break someone's face after the shooting. A traitor squeezed between us with a tray of honey-filled hearth pies. Hey, who wants the pies? She squealed, dangerously juggling the tray. Hot, fresh, just a copper for a couple. We shopped. The merchant disappeared as quickly as she has appeared, otherwise she would have had to show off with a black eye. Hot and fresh pies were at best the day before yesterday. Val, have you gone crazy? Leon is a great shooter. Quite naturally he wants to try his luck. Me too. Are you participating? Val's surprise knew no bounds. Do you even know how to hold a bow in your hands? Combat one? No, I admitted honestly. It's okay. It's even more interesting this way. Let's see what Lon says when I am on the other side of the line. Well, then I am on the team, the troll cheered up. You'll cover for me if anything happens. And in general, just be careful with him. This is not human. I know. You don't. Trust me, chick, I know about vampires. Leon is a machine of destruction, perfect and merciless. I saw this vampire in action. He was trained well. He is equally good at chopping with both hands, shoots offhand with a bow and crossbow, is capable of cutting through a hardened sword with the edge of his palm, or tearing out a heart right through chainmail with his bare hand. And if he gets angry, then, as villagers in the eastern lands say, break the boards, hide in the boat while the head is intact. Don't giggle. Listen to the specialist. Because later there will be no time for fun. For Leon to get angry? I laughed. I tried to get him out of patience for 2 weeks, but in vain. Come on, it's more likely that the legendary Starman's hermit will visit the zealous bull. Long abstinence is a fertile ground for sin. If I were you, I'd get a couple of amulets, just in case. And what hermit exactly? In a monastery above the river? Next to the convent? And I kept wondering why he was digging there at night and pouring buckets of earth from the cliff. What amulets? I'm a magician. Yeah, tell that to your mare. White-haired ones are invulnerable to direct magical strikes. Amulets will be more reliable, but even that is not a guarantee. And I've known Leon for more than 1 year, stubborn as a vagutz. Even his fiancée couldn't rein him in. Fiancée? I could hardly stay on my feet. Does he have a fiancée? Later. Val shied away and hurriedly squeezed into the crowd. Well, here I am. Leon looked great. His new studded leather jacket looked more elegant on him than on display mannequin. Dark brown trousers made of soft deerskin hugged his narrow hips. The handsome, courageous face and the hilt of the sword hanging behind of his back brought back images of epic heroes. I was even embarrassed to stand next to him because this place rightfully belonged to a dazzling blonde with legs growing from her ears and the figure of the dryad. You look great. The dryad can't hold a the dryad can't even be compared to you. Oh, you somehow joined the ranks of my competitors. Leon, are you back to your old ways? Don't you dare to do that again. Volka, you don't understand what you're asking for, he said reproachfully and at the same time pitifully. I don't make any effort to read minds. For me, it is natural as seeing and hearing. I cannot listen and not hear, see and not notice. You could at least pretend you not notice. Most of the time that's what I do, he retorted, offering me his hand. This gesture stunned me so much that I looked around hauntedly. There were a great many loving couples flocking to the market, so I more or less had an idea of what the two-person structure that I was asked to complete looked like. However, I had never walked arm in arm with a vampire, and I had a vague suspicion that this would not end well. While I was thinking, and Leon was waiting patiently and seriously, there was another contender for my pleasant company. "Hey, baby, is this cute ferret bothering you?" was heard behind me. Leon narrowed his eyes uncomfortably. I turned around slowly. A pimply guy with an openly gangster appearance winked at me greasily, grinning with all 15 carious teeth and ostentatiously flexing his biceps and triceps. The leather vest was bursting meaningfully at the seams. He looked at the thin vampire with obvious contempt. "So, honey, leave this bastard and come with me. I'll respect you." "I will agree to go with you only to the cemetery, provided that you are carried and I am contracted to nail down the lid," I answered with dignity, retreating under the protection of the broad shoulders and wings of the vampire, just in case. The guy said 3 unprintable words and rolled up his sleeves. "Since I was 12, I have dreamed of a handsome, strong, noble knight capable of putting my offenders in a neat pile. By the age of 15, I had more or less become proficient in defensive magic, and the need of protector disappeared. Why would you need a man if you yourself can give a worse rebuff?" Well, completely in vain. I never imagined that it would be so nice to stand behind the man who is fighting for you. Stand and giggle, confident of his victory. Leon calmly took the pimply man by the collar. Twitching, he stood on tiptoes, lifted off the ground, and swung the toes of his boots. "What did you say?" the vampire asked politely. "Shit!" the pimply man wheezed, strangled by the collar. "Nice to meet you." Leon turned to me without unclenching his hand. Where is the nearest sewer?" he asked. I showed. "I'm afraid it would make it," the vampire sighed with faint doubt, estimating the distance to the ditch. "Well, try it." "Don't!" croaked the guy with a strange name. "Risk is a noble cause," Leon affectionately explained to the pimply man. He who doesn't take risk doesn't drink sewage. With this parting word, the guy, howling with fear, soared into the air and landed right in the middle of the ditch. It turned out to be not so shallow, but the pimply one, like the waste product of the same name, did not sink but floundered and spun. Leon offered me his hand again. I gallantly accepted. The shortest road to the square ran along the fish row. The stench there was terrible. Fresh fish, in my opinion, could not smell like that. Stray cats got underfoot, traders vying with each other to invite customers, throwing sad, bug-eyed carcasses from palm to palm. We had just managed to get out to the cleared place when the singing of trumpets came from afar and the royal carriage drove through the wide open gates of the market. The white, blinkered horses ran at a well-coordinated dancing trot. Scarlet plumes of flame fluttered in the wind. On the doors of the gilded carriage, a bison and a bear are intertwined in a relief coat of arms. In a relief coat of arms. From behind the drawn curtains, the suspicious eye of the monarch was peeking out. The carriage was accompanied by 8 knights on bay horses, wearing silver saddlecloth with golden shamrocks. Chainmail rattled, hoofs clattered, knights tried to hide behind shields from a hail of flowers interspersed with rotten tomatoes. In any crowd there will be a couple of or 3 dissatisfied with the current government. Everything was very solemn. The carriage stopped at the edge of the path, where the entire ruling elite, including the chief minister and my teacher, had crowded in advance. The trumpets played 3 encore chords, and the dressed-up city ruler, bowing his head respectfully, opened the carriage door. The first to emerge, timidly looking around, were the stalwart guards, ready to dive back if something happened. The crowd received them favorably, with wild whistles and cabbage stalks. Having taken the brunt of the blow, the guards parted. A silver pug jumped out of the carriage and immediately raised his paw over the boot of the Minister of Defense, who stood at attention. Following the pug, we had the good fortune to see the monarch himself. Having given his subject a false smile, the crowd rumbled with displeasure. In the morning there had been a rumor that His Royal Majesty would give out alms and even released 1,000 gold coins in silver for this purpose. King Naum walked to the throne and sat down with obvious relief. 2 dazzling red-haired beauties immediately appeared on both sides of the throne, either guards or favorites. The last one to get out of the carriage was the forgotten Queen Veronica. Disdainfully rejecting the chief minister's hand, she became entangled in the frills of her dress and nearly fell. The knight who supported her by the elbow in time was rewarded with a gentle, promising smile. The queen was escorted out and seated on a luxurious chair next to the throne. Ministers, masters and guards occupied the side flanks. The people looked expectantly at the powers that be, and the pug jumped into the queen's arms and arrogantly lifted up his ugly muzzle. "Oh, my glorious people," the king began, raising his hand. The glorious people fell silent, looking with adoration at the bag lying on the right hand of the monarch. "On this wonderful day," Naum continued, "we have gathered here to reward according to the merits of the most worthy of the worthy, hoping with all our hearts that he will prove himself in a fair competition on bows." The king paused, during which the treasurer respectfully, with a bow, placed a long bundle into his randomly outstretched hand. The prize in the competition will be. The king effectively tore a piece of leather from the package. The sword of great knight of all times and peoples, glorified in legends and ballads, the noble Julian the Dragon Slayer. The crowd burst into thunderous applause, although the sword had clearly seen better days. The jagged, dull blade was rusted through. The dragon skin hilt was fairly worn, and only the gem in the head still glowed with an even, noble blue light. Frankly speaking, no one could have pulled out a better price from the bins of his treasury. I looked back at Leon to say something caustic about this scrap metal, but stopped mid-sentence. The vampire's eyes burned greedily. He leaned forward, devouring the sword with his eyes. Leon! I tugged at his sleeve. Wake up! Huh? The vampire looked around, glanced at me with an unseen gaze, and stared at the sword again. Later. What do you mean, later? I was indignant. Are you hoping that I will forget again? If the vampire was going to answer, which I deeply doubt, I still would not have been able to hear him. There was such a hubbub in the square that the frightened pigeons fluttered from the fence and circled high in the sky. A pile formed in front of the royal throne. Naum finally untied the treasured bag. It contained small silver which the monarch lazily, with a tinge of contempt, began to throw at the feet of the crowd. When, quite quickly, the bag was empty, Naum waved his lace handkerchief regally, and fanfare immediately howled, signaling the start of the shooting range. There was nothing complicated about the rules. The shooters took turns calling to the line, shooting 3 times. These points were not counted. Then shooting seriously and giving way to the next contender. The first miss became the last. The archer dropped out of the shooting range. After each round, the target was moved 5 steps away, making the demands on the shooters more difficult. To my delight, I did not manage to disgrace myself during the trial. Having gained courage, I went to the test. In my first 5 rounds, I scored 16 points out of a possible 50 and was deservedly proud. Out of almost 200 applicants, no more than 4 dozen remained next to me. I was as lucky as a drowned woman. The arrows hit the multicolored target randomly, never approaching the center closer than 4. The most difficult part of shooting a tight sports bow was pulling the string. The spectators died laughing when I, crouching down and holding the bow between my knees, pulled back the buzzing string in the most unimaginable ways. The arrow I shot flew along a zigzag trajectory that wasn't acceptable from a scientific point of view. At times it seemed that it, like a boomerang, turned around and tries to return. The boy who was on duty at the target, seeing me at the line, fell on his face and covered his head with his hands. My bow and quiver were checked and rechecked several times, but the result was the same. The arrow invariably found the target and pierced it at all possible angles. Val did not lose face, 49 points. The rest were breathing down his back, 48, 47, 45. Leon was in the lead, driving the arrow precisely into the center of the bull's eye over and over again. The vampire scored 50 points. Each of his steps to the line was accompanied by thunderous applause. Girls, women, old women, and ancient hugs sent air kisses to the vampire, throwing bouquets of late asters and ribbons of from their braids. Succumbing to the general madness, I threw a piece of pie at Leon, which landed right in the trumpet of the fanfare. The herald's cheeks turned purple with effort. The pie flew out of the fanfare, whistled with its eaten guts, and spread across the forehead of the teacher, who was sitting on the podium as part of the judging commission. The old magician turned around, caught my frightened gaze, and menacingly shook his index finger. Leon pursed his lips, holding back a laugh. He raised his bow, smoothly pulled back the string, and, almost without aiming, released an arrow. It flew beautifully and slowly, like a swan. It dug into the center of the ten. A hand could not have pierced it more precisely. As expected, the screening began already from the first round. After it, the ranks of applicants thinned threefold. Many participants like me came to the shooting range for fun. But by the 8th round it became clear that for some reason even the most worthy of the worthy were not eager to become the happy winners of the prize. I completely shared their opinion. The prize was not so hot, but victory for the sake of glory was also worth the fight. But then, the participants flew out one after another. They were seen off with poisonous laughs and mocking cries, which turned into indignant whistles when the recognized champion, the elf Flarian, with amazing accuracy planted a completely foreign maple leaf on an arrow. The leaf was circling a good elbow above the target. Milkman, the disappointed crowd, howled with 1,000 animal throats. Cross-eyed, crooked dwarf! Eh, who is a crook here? A furious roar was heard from the good dozen dwarfs armed with heavy axes. No one had ever seen a dwarf archer, but the little people were firmly convinced that marksmanship was one of their hidden virtues. The elf indifferently, without visible grief, gave the bow to the manager, raised his hands in defeat, and with a dexterity characteristic of his race, got lost in the crowd. The herald blew a low moaning sound from the fanfare, cleared his throat, and tried to shout over the raging crowd. The A. Flarian, called Podgaiskin, gloriously drops out of the games. Put Herald on the soap, came a broken boyish voice from the back row. Soap, the crowd enthusiastically picked up. The herald hit a couple of annoying soap makers with fanfare, who took the boy's words literally. Get away, you bastards! Called to the line. Another contestant came on the line. She turned out to be a Valkyrie, about 30 years old, tall, tanned, with piercing blue eyes, with a long sand-colored braid. Beautiful face was somewhat spoiled by protruding cheekbones framed by muscle nodules. All her clothes consisted of 3 or 4 belts with rivets, some wider, some narrower, but still belts. The naked parts of the body, that is, almost everything, were a continuous ball of muscles rolling like a sea waves. The warrior was offered an official bow. She considered it not of very high quality, and announced this loudly, and responded to the offer to leave the shooting range with a savory spit at the herald's feet. The word Valkyrie has long become a common noun, both in relation to martial arts and bad character. The herald tried to defend himself with a fanfare. The Valkyrie snatched the long-suffering instrument and bent it on her knee with a creak to the stormy jubilation of the crowd. Not stopping there, the Valkyrie tied the fanfare into the... Please unglitch. She tied the fanfare into the noose and put onto the wordless herald's neck, after which mercifully accepted the bow. down. And I cannot see the text. I hope it will come alive again. I really hope so. Where is my internet? I would love to see it. I would love to have it back. Sorry, I'm afraid I have to restart it for a minute. Because everything decided to fall out, and I'm not even playing Fallout. Can I have my connection back, please? Yay. It seems to be back. Great. Apologies. We finished on the Valkyrie, tying the poor fanfare into the noose, and finally accepting the bow. She smoothly, somehow contemptuously pulled back the bowstring and caught Leon's gaze. Well, I would like to someday see the same expression on the face of the man I love. There was passion, tenderness, genuine admiration, and a plea for a reverent kiss. Valkyrie smiled, at first timidly and distrustfully. Then she began to shine like the sun. Instead of striking when the iron was hot, the vampire shrugged his shoulders in disappointment and turned away, as if he had miscalculated and his passionate feelings were intended for someone else. Valkyrie clinked her bow in annoyance, and of course missed, taking too long to release the arrow. Oh, how she was screaming! There were exclusively polite words, but put together they made a stunning impression. Glancing briefly at Leon, I noticed that the vampire with the calm face was whispering something in Val's ear. The troll listened, grinned, and nodded. Meanwhile, the next contender for the role of scrap metal spat with relish at his feet, threw away his bow, and walked away, shielding himself with the bent arm from the hail of scraps and clods of earth. It was the 10th round. There were only 4 participants left. Val, Leon, a certain fellow in a hat with an eagle feather. It was rumored that this was the chieftain of the famous bandit gang from Wolf Forest. However, the chieftain was smart enough not to leave witnesses. And me, with a lead of 64 points. falling behind for 64 points. Calling to the line. Either Leon's hand trembled or he was aiming inattentively, but the aid dropped him to third place. I scored 1 point. Just 1 point, but I stayed in the game. I was triumphant. It looked like I'll wake up tomorrow as a school legend. And then I saw something that I could barely stand on my feet. Leon, this ideal man, the lord of the vampires, the rightful ruler of the Geva, tripped up the Ataman who was hurrying to the line. He fell and never got up again. When the doctors fussed around him, it became clear that the chieftain was not fit for the further competitions, and that the road through the wolf forest would be safe for at least a month, the time required for the fusion of the shin bones. A shiver ran through me. The smile on Val's face seemed like a frozen grimace. The troll hesitantly stepped forward towards the line, looked around, licked his dry lips, reached for the arrow, and I already knew that the worthy of the worthy would take the sword to the Geva. And I was not mistaken. Leon raised his bow. He seemed to revel in the moment of his triumph. The crowd openly sympathized with the blonde stranger, heads were flying in the air. A freckled boy in the front row fired peas from a tube at the herald. The king was whispering about something with the teacher, looking sideways, casting distrustful glances toward the vampire. I looked back at the groaning chieftain. He came to his senses and was now inaudibly screaming at the doctor, who was making a splint on the broken bone. The decision was made instantly. "Hey boy, come on, give it here." I snatched the tube from the child. He blinked his eyes in surprise, about to burst into tears. "Quiet, give me a pea, I'll show you how to shoot." The boy willingly emptied his pockets. Children are generally very capable students when it comes to all sorts of dirty tricks. To my delight, he shot green peas, juicy and pliable. I tore off the participant's badge from my chest and broke off a thin steel needle from it. I put a pea stuffed with a needle into a tube, put it to my lips, and blew as hard as I could. Leon gently let go of the bowstring and jerked, slapping his hand on his neck. The crowd howled. The king jumped up from his seat and immediately, ashamed, hurriedly leaned back. The cow, which until now had not objected to lifelong milking with the prospect of goulash, roared in a bad voice and, throwing up its rear, from which the unfortunate arrow was sticking out, galloped heavily along the row, dragging the cattleman with the rope bound around his arm. White plumage fluttered in the wind. Leon's hateful gaze pierced me like a red-hot rod. The vampire hunched over, curled his fingers, and fangs flashed from under his raised upper lip. I backed away. It seemed to me that now he would rush at me despite the crowd, guards, and magicians. But nothing happened. Leon straightened up, took a breath, and walked away from the line. He stood at the judge's platform, studying the clouds with visible carelessness. The cow was caught and taken away. The heralds played the victory, and before I had time to come to my senses, I was already standing on the carpet, and someone's hand was pushing me from behind. Like, "Go, get your reward, the worthy of the worthy." Completely confused, I obediently approached the throne and knelt. The screams and whistles died down. A deathly, ear-ringing silence reigned. The king stood up, his heavy vestments rustling. The tip of the sword rested on my shoulder. "The most worthy of the worthy has been named," the king proclaimed after taking the required pause. "The winner of the current shooting ranges was this, Accurate girl. What's her name? Volcharedne, the teacher helpfully suggested. Vol. The words got stuck in the knight's throat. In the middle of the carpet, the fabric parted with a tear. A huge mound grew out of the hole, and something grey and furry, a quarter of man's height, jumped out. Looking at the black beads of Look into the sides with the black beads of a rat's eyes. It squeaked joyfully, jumped up, snatched the king's sword, and set off, meandering under the feet of screaming women and jumping men. Get him! The king came to his senses. Alas, fulfilling the order turned out to be not so easy. Swords and bows were not suitable for hunting in the thick of a crowd, and the thief, still a very young baldak, showed remarkable dexterity and agility. To classify the Waldaks among the intelligent races as well to classify the Waldaks as intelligent race would be wrong, as well as classifying them as evil spirits, as darklings. These creatures definitely possess the rudiments of intelligence, allowing them to communicate quite clearly with each other and other creatures, build vast underground cities, observe some simple laws like do not kill your neighbor without at least some kind of a reason, and know that the golden Belorian cladding is equal to 7 Erasmus Yerets or 3 Balmanian Zolotniks. Valdaks never fought with anyone, did not pay taxes to anyone, did not owe any technologies, and did not enter into territorial conflicts because they lived in underground catacombs dug by them. They communicated mainly with dwarfs, making natural exchanges with them, products for raw materials for the dwarf industry, coal, precious stones, ore. Just as willingly, the Waldaks interacted with the conditionally dangerous darklings, kikimors, lieshis, water spirits, gluvets, and podkomorniks. It is unknown what benefits both sides had, but the darklings swarmed near Valdak cities. As one can conclude, the Waldaks did not cause any particular trouble. However, they were of almost no use either, which is why they were treated as empty space. Well, the residents of the surrounding villages often complained to the authorities about illegal cattle rustling and the digging of turnips, but to snatch a valuable prize from the generous royal hands like this in broad daylight, no one expected this, and therefore there was no worthy rebuff. The magisters, who had worked conscientiously at night, could only bite their elbows in impotent anger. Sluggish guards in ceremonial polished to a shine but alas too bulky armor got stuck in the crowd like flies in fresh honey. Some conscientious citizens tried to beat the runner with anything: sticks, whips, boots, and fruit seedlings purchased for the winter. Most of the blows fell on empty spaces and only a few on neighbors who were quick to show their displeasure. Fights broke out in several places. Waldak behaved strangely, to say the least. It seemed that he was running around under people's feet solely for the sake of fun. The thief was in no hurry to run away from the square, although he had already flashed several times near the wide open gates. However, that's where he shouldn't have run. I noticed Almid hiding behind the gate. Magister kept a vigilant eye on the Waldak, holding the pinch of his right hand slightly pulled back and folded like a cat's paw at the ready. 2/3 of the spells are cast from this position. Hey chick, The troll, unceremoniously throwing people around, made his way towards me. Go get the Hvibnik. Let's put him in pincers before he gets away with a piece of iron. Leon emerged from the crowd next to us like a snake out of water. I just opened my mouth to repent, but the vampire preemptively raised his hand, calling for attention. No time. He's going to run away now. I don't know how, but he knows, and is deliberately stalling for time. Let's make our way closer to the corner of the wall, over there, where the cart stands. We'll stand in a chain, Val and I at each of the walls, you in the center, and when he's in the corner, we'll try to not let him go. All clear? Yes, we ran away in different directions. As John predicted, apparently there was some telepathy. The bulldog, jumping up and pinching the plump merchant's wife in a piquant place, abruptly changed direction. When he ducked onto the cart, Val and I had already taken up our combat position. John was a little behind, squeezed by the crowd, and in accordance with instructions, simultaneously rushed forward. I crouched down and maneuvered between people. Val walked straight ahead, and the bulldog, fortunately, focused his attention on him, completely losing sight of the other hunters. Letting the troll come within 3 elbows, the bulldog jumped out from under the cart, intending to take part in the race again. But there I was, waiting for him, with my arms outstretched in greeting, a short knife in one, and unchanging sword in the other. The creature backed away, hissing angrily, until its back hit the corner. Bolha! Leon's warning cry reached my ears too late. Waldo curled up into a ball, pressed his translucent grey ears back, and waved a crooked red paw in my direction. Something like a gold ring flashed on it. It seemed to me that the sun exploded before my eyes. A white flash blinded and washed over me with a hot wave. The wave subsided as suddenly as it appeared. A silent scene followed. I tried to divide the attention between the Waldock and myself, feverishly searching with my eyes for traces of blood on my clothes. The absence of any consequences of incomprehensible magic was more frightening than their theoretical appearance. Magic. Where does magic come from? The square is enchanted from all its types, and magisters of the first degree, experts in their field, worked here. Oh shit! I remember that among our magicians there was not a single necromancer. Who would even think of cheating using necromancy? This is mostly the magic of destruction. What? Did I die? My bioman pain shock? No, the Waldock seemed no less stunned than me. That means he expected a visible result, like a melted corpse, in an amount of 1. I cast a quick glance at the magicians crowded around the podium. They all stared in bewilderment, and only the teacher suddenly grinned into his white beard and shook his head approvingly. Waldock was the first to come to his senses. Baring his small sharp teeth, he cursed dirtily and fell to the ground, looking around in search of a loophole. "Give me the sword, little rat," I suggested gloomily, taking the sword more comfortably. "Give it back, or else." Waldo Kid showed a blue forked tongue and defiantly put his hands with my prize behind his back. "Move, chick." "I'll do it," Val promised gloomily, pushing me aside and pulling a double-edged blade from its sheath with a menacing rustle. "Wait, let's first ask why he needs the sword." "What is there to ask? It's already clear." "Hey, shaggy hair, you coveting a pebble?" Yeah, like the pebble? "Kill him!" Leon shouted, finally getting out of the jam and rushing towards us at top speed. "Quicker, hurry, before came faster than he thought. The earth opened up under the runner's fur paws. The little the little bulldog squeaked triumphantly and dived into a dark hole about 2 feet in diameter. Val, without hesitation, jumped after him, but without luck. The earth closed again around his waist, like a tight belt. "Pull me out, you sorceress, you mother!" The troll screamed, twitching like a rat caught in a mouse trap. It didn't kill it, but held tightly. Leon, not having time to stop, ran into a stuck troll, tripped and rolled on the ground, tumbling over his head. The cloak flew to the side, the jacket burst along the middle seam, and when the vampire finally fell heavily on his stomach, scratching the gravel with his hands, the people crowded in the square saw the grey, leathery bat wings adorning the back of a handsome man. The hysterical, exalted cry of the merchant who spilled stale pies served as a signal for the start of action. Leon, still lying down, looked over his shoulder, made sure of the effect produced, and cursed through his teeth. "A vampire! A vampire!" the woman strained, pointing at the scoundrel with a trembling finger, if someone hadn't guessed yet. Having torn off his jacket along with his shirt, Leon spread his wings with a rustle. The people recoiled in amazement. "He's flying away, bitch!" Someone whispered hotly behind my back. "At least cover your face with your sleeve, you shameless girl. The vampire is very good at causing damage to girls." This was applied to me, but didn't bother me much. What is he doing? He cannot fly. But the vampire had much worse things in store. Flapping his wings, he covered his head with them, and the grey leathery mass immediately began to change shape. The wings liquefied, clinging to the body with a sticky tar film. Long black claws cut through the vague outlines of arms and legs. The head got flattened from the sides and stretched into the muzzle of a wolf, torn by an ominous scream. Lush chrysanthemums of fur blossomed all over the body, merging into a luxurious coat. The white wolf raised his head and growled. The crowd's opinions were divided. Some continued to persist, "Vampire, vampire." But the other side changed their cry to the "Werewolf, werewolf," and rushed in all directions, forming a wide circle around Leon. A solid circle. The front rows were scared, but the back rows couldn't see, and therefore they constantly changed places, gradually bristling with swords, bows, and daggers. A priest in black flowing robes climbed onto a cart with pumpkins, and in a broken voice proclaimed anathema, generously sprinkling holy water on the believers. The pumpkins crunched, and righteous anger burned in the cleric's eyes. On the poles, greased with lard and decorated with a wheel with prizes, which none of the participants in the competition could reach, now sat a bony old man, a freckled village guy with a stupidly slack jaw, a fat woman with a basket of eggs grabbed by the handle with her teeth, an acrobat from a traveling circus, and a tabby cat crawling under the sliding down under the heartbreaking meow and creaking of claws. The villager, who had just successfully bargained for a dozen piglets, let go of the bag, and the pink piglets, with their tails up, squealed and rushed about underfoot. The skinny horse, which the gypsy passed off as an unbroken 3-year-old, reared up at the sight of the wolf, hit its owner in the temple with the hoof, and rushed away at the speed of the prize trotter. The royal guards, not succumbing to general panic, purposefully retreated towards the exit. As always, the most daring were the uncouth hillbillies. Stopping their bus shoes and encouraging themselves with loud exclamations, they rushed along, squeezing the rain. The wolf darted back and forth, let the villagers get closer, and, making a short lunge, pulled one of them by the ankle. The man doubled over with a scream. The beast easily jumped onto his back and, running over the heads and shoulders of the attackers, jumped onto the roof of the outer tent. The crowd gave chase with a frustrated howl, knocking over the trays. But in vain. The wolf scampered across the rooftops like a mountain goat. After hesitating, he jumped briskly onto the market wall. He hung a little bit, scrambling with his hind paws, pulled himself up, and disappeared. The pursuers crashed into the wall like dry peas, crushing the most nimble and zealous. The wall cracked, but stood. Further event unfolded beyond my sight. Behind the wall they screamed, shouted, growled, the whistle of swords mixed with stomping and neighing. Cursing the anti-magic field obscenely, I rushed along the wall to the gate. There was a cloud of dust rising. 3 or 4 horses without riders were running away in different directions. The guard, prudently waiting out the quarrel behind the wall, tried to curb the snoring, rearing horses, and some were already lying on the ground, intricately remembering Don's relatives. As it turned out later, the wolf, instead of attacking the riders, rushed into the thick of the hooves and howled soulfully on a blood-chilling note. The horses went crazy. Having thrown away their swords and crossbows, the guards fell to the ground like ripe pears. None of them noticed where the wolf had disappeared. However, later some claimed that he turned into a black raven and flew away to the east. The number of ravens exterminated before sunset could not be counted. The foreman, swearing and lashing the horse, dancing in place with a whip, loudly denounced his noticeably thinned army, magicians, vampires, werewolves, and the shooting rage in general. The crowd's attention turned to the beaten villager. Rolling on the ground, he howled in pain, clutching his crippled leg. There were no rivers of blood, and the victim's suffering was more of a mental nature. According to the legends, a werewolf bite is contagious. Both the crowd and the person beaten waited with bated breath for the first symptoms. I decisively stopped this disgrace by presenting the badge of the School of Sorcerers. The badge was issued after passing the exams for the 8th year. It was a simple token with my name and the imprint of the school seal, and publicly announced that a werewolf bite is dangerous only at night. As a matter of fact, I generally doubted that Lon's saliva had any mutational effect, even if it happened at midnight on a full moon and at the crossroads of 3 roads. The crowd murmured in disappointment. The man became quiet and allowed me to examine his ankle. 2 pairs of neat holes on both sides of the bone did not look serious. Even the bleeding stopped on its own, and I limited myself to a simple spell against tetanus. Having applied a bandage of 3 handkerchiefs lent by kind-hearted onlookers, I advised the man to wash the wound with moonshine and take an equivalent amount of this miraculous liquid internally. The man joyfully repeated the second part of the recipe to his wife, who arrived in time and, with some difficulty, broke through the tight ring of onlookers. Not interested in the further fate of the beaten person, I got out of the crowd and looked for familiar faces. The magicians, without really coming to their senses themselves, tried to restore at least some order and stop the panic. They started from the pole. If there were no problems with the freckled guy, the acrobat, and the cat, Then the fat woman only clenched her legs and arms tighter and cried. The anti-magic blockade continued to operate, and the magisters hovered around the pole like foxes under the eagle's nest. Finally, succumbing to persuasion, the woman clenched her teeth. The basket turned over in flight, the eggs dispersed, and not a single one missed the target. All attempts to climb the pole failed. Having freed her mouth, the woman roared in a bad voice. The old man, who was sitting higher than the fat woman and eager to find himself on the ground as quickly as possible, kicked her with his foot, and she slowly slid down. In such a cruel way, he accompanied her to the end of the pole, but instead of gratitude, the woman rushed at him with her fist. The teacher tore me away from the wondrous sight, and at the same time almost tore off my ear. "There you are, Brad!" The mentor's appearance was terrible. His eyes flashed like lightning, his left cheek was stained with yolk, and there were pieces of eggshell in his sticky beard. I squealed and hung on my ear. "Come on! Go to school now. I'll deal with you in the evening." "What did I do?" Instead of answering, he slapped me so hard that my vision went dark. When the darkness cleared a little, I saw the back of the teacher walking away, as it seemed to me, with my left ear in his hand. Panic over the werewolf gave way to lamentation over losses. The merchants, speechless, wrung their hands over the goods, partly damaged, partly stolen. A fat, piebald pig with a happy grunt picked up the poppy seed bagels, trampled into the mud with her snout. Somewhere nearby, a woman was screaming heart-rendingly. The first thing I did was grab my ear, and was quite amazed by its presence. The current circumstances required decisive action. Darting back and forth, I saw my horse. She wandered thoughtfully through the empty rows, picking up carrots and apples from the shelves. A rein with a fragment of a hitching post was dragging along the ground. Having pulled the mare, who was resisting with her all four legs from the reins, I jumped into the saddle. After thinking a little, Romashka caved in. Her back was very flexible, like a cat's. Laughter and malicious shouts rained down from the crowd. "Get off the mare, girl! You'll break it in half!" "Oh wow, she looks so skinny!" "Hey, you must have a conscience to stop torturing poor animal." The poor animal enjoyed the effect, and I rather rudely stabbed her in the side with my heel. Chamomile immediately straightened up, snored indignantly, and, at a light dancing trot, rushed after the black mane that flashed in the gap between the tents. On the stallion was sitting Val. He realized in time that he needed to take the horse away before the crowd came to their senses, before someone cunning blamed the sins of the rightful owner on the horse. There have already been public burnings of cats and crows that belonged to sorcerers, convicted of causing damage and evil eye. Volt's mane flashed in the distance a couple more times, and then I became hopelessly stuck in the ground and lost sight of the stallion. Let's hope that Val takes Volt to the schoolyard. It's unlikely that the troll will dare to steal the horse from the Lord of the Gala. However, that is not impossible. Mercenary is a mercenary. Here she is! The Ghoul's girl! Get her! A piercing, almost womanish squeal came from the roadside ditch. Turning around, I recognized the old female guy and was a little surprised. After all, before my eyes he got out of the ditch and leaping took off running. Most likely he jumped back again to wait out the panic. I didn't immediately understand why free space had formed around Chamomile. The horse without hesitation trotted forward. The people in front of us scattered like waves before the bow of a ship, until a reef appeared directly ahead. Reef, almost 5 feet at the shoulders, tightly clutched a butcher's axe with a black blade in his hairy hands. The white apron of the reef was spattered with bull and sheep blood. Having brought us within striking distance, the butcher slashed at me with an axe with a guttural grunt. I didn't know how to vault, but need forced me to. Hanging from the side of the saddle opposite to the impact, I brushed my hair along the road, felt my left leg falling out of the stirrup, jerked convulsively, and to my utter surprise, found myself on the saddle again, backwards. Chamomile, frightened by the whistling of the axe and the terrible hack, reared up and walked with her front hoofs on the white butcher's cap, after which she took off without making out the road. The butcher, sprawled on the ground, was left behind. The advantages of the maneuver were obvious. Now, Chamomile's head did not obscure my view. On the other hand, it would be nice to know what's ahead. They say spitting over your right shoulder is a bad omen. Looking back over it, it's even worse. Ahead was a market wall, made of rough-hewn stone. "Stop!" I screamed. Chamomile just added the speed. What is this crazy mare doing? She sees the wall. She understands perfectly well that she, with her plump body and short legs, cannot even jump to the middle. But she had no intention of jumping. She grunted this horror to me. Braking sharply at the foot of the wall, the horse backed up, giving me the necessary acceleration. Soaring over the edge, I reflexively waved my arms and flew. Behind the wall, the anti-magic blockade was ending. After getting rid of excess weight, Chamomile showed miracles of agility and liveliness. Kicking, hitting, and jumping sideways like a goat, she cleared her way to the gate and was away. Unable to resist, I showed my pursuers the middle finger, laughed ominously, summoned a couple of lightning bolts, and effectively disappeared into thin air. We're going to take a short break here and then have another lecture. Or honestly, I just looked at the time and then I looked at the length of the next chapter, which is about the same as this one. And I think we'll probably finish for today. Thank you very much for hanging around. I'm sorry to whoever just joined us. You can find previous chapters on my YouTube channel. It has the same name, acidmanticore. Good night.